Um, but as I mentioned, my name is Laura Camila. I'm excited to be with you all here today. I am the founder and CEO of Cami Studios, which stands for Creative Automation and Marketing Innovation. I've been having a lot of fun with AI and marketing innovation for a while. So excited to see that it really is becoming this big space for everybody to really grow into. So as I mentioned, I'm based out of Puerto Rico normally, but I do a lot of traveling for lots of my clients. And I'm also on the board of an organization called Mujeres in Marketing, which is where I originally developed this presentation. So really excited to share this with you all. I'm also on the board of Alpha Puerto Rico, the Association of Latino Professionals for America. So really excited to be able to bring, all of these spaces together and provide professional development, provide resources and tools for Mujeres in Marketing, and now also for Latinos and Black in tech, right? So excited to be here with you all. I'll say excited one more time, and then I won't say it again. I'm excited. So we'll get started. I want to tell you guys a little bit and talk a little bit about the AI marketing shift. As I'm sure you've heard, today and in previous times, AI is no longer optional, right? It's become the backbone of a lot of the modern marketing workflows, and it's being used in a lot of different marketing spaces, right? This is something that it's hitting a $47 billion market in 2025, and over 80% of marketers are using AI every day, and a lot of them use it to speed up that content delivery, that content creation, right? So a lot of marketers are using it to reduce time spent on repetitive tasks, things like content marketing, things like social media, CRM management, research, right? All those moving pieces, trying to get more actionable insights from data, and even accelerating that revenue growth using these insights and trying to unlock a better value from some of those technologies, right? So the real question here, and what we're going to answer today, is how do we avoid becoming a content vending machine and instead use AI to actually deepen human engagement? And I'm starting to see in the chat, people are dropping their names, dropping their LinkedIn. Please, please, please continue to do that. Again, this is all about building community and combining our resources so that we can work together in this industry, right? So now that we understand a little bit about what's going on with AI and marketing, let's talk about creative intelligence. So creative intelligence is the ability to adapt to change and solve problems creatively, right? And that's something that can be used in any field, and so is messaging, really. And it's also important to use divergent thinking to see ideas from different perspectives and try to kind of approach things in a different way. That's what creative intelligence allows you to do, your CI, right? And to collaborate with technology and spark innovation so that you're not afraid of trying new things. You're not afraid of the coming wave of AI, things like that. So we really like to foster that creative intelligence in ourselves because AI can always generate copy and help personalize some content, even predict customer behaviors. But at the end of the day, it cannot and will not be able to understand our lived experiences, sense cultural nuance necessarily, or create emotional meaning on its own. Right. So those are some things that are going to be really, really important for us to, as individuals, to do. And we are the bridges between that machine efficiency and that human empathy. All right, hopping to the next slide. So here's a little bit about some trends. We're not going to go too deeply into this, but I wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of what's coming down the pipeline, what's already happening in these pipelines, in these spaces, right? So for one, AI is supporting advanced data analytics, right? So it helps us process structured data, like specific, like content like clicks and purchase histories, and opens for like emails, website visitors, things like that. It also mines unstructured data, right? So it takes things like images, videos, social media, reviews, like sentiment analysis, and it uses it to uncover consumer preferences, brand sentiment, and even emergent shopping trends, right? It also is moving really into hyper personalization and what that looks like. So it's going to predict customer needs using some of that data. It can deliver tailored project recommendations. You're already seeing that across your platforms, and it can create experiences that make a customer feel seen, understood, and valued. And so these are things that we should absolutely be doing with our messaging, and that we should be implementing AI to do with our messaging, right? Um, and lastly, you've all seen it, right? These chatbots and BAs that are handling customer service, that are answering FAQs, that are processing orders, and helping create things like visual search integration, so that you can identify different products by taking a picture of something and saying, like, what's that? Where can I get it? Right. So that's also really important, and providing some of that real-time support and personalized shopping guidance. For example, just this week, I had to return an electric toothbrush, and I didn't even realize that I was talking to an AI bot via email. Right. Like, it wasn't like a chat bot. It was via email, until I had seen in the signature, after like the third message, oh yeah, this is an AI support. Right. And it was asking me, like, what's your order number? What's wrong with the order? I was like, this is what's going on. It was like, great. We totally understand where you're coming from. These are the next steps. Would you like us to proceed with processing with a new order? Things like that. And it handled everything from top to bottom without requiring me to even talk to somebody. So that was kind of crazy. So what does that mean for you guys in your day-to-day, right? Let's talk a little bit about that personalization to predictive anticipation. So we originally, what ChatGPT and all of these tools can do is that, like, personalization, all of these AI, right? But moving to predictive anticipation is that shift that's going to make a really big difference in our messaging, right? It goes beyond reacting what customers do, and it starts to actually forecast what they're going to do next, or what their mood is, or what they need to do before they even get to make that next step, right? We always say that it takes around 7 to 13 touches to drive action in the digital world and in the marketing world. So we'll say, like, even a brochure that someone sees at a restaurant, that's one touch, right? Then an email you receive is another touch, and then a social media ad is another touch, and then someone saying something to you word of mouth is another touch. It normally takes 7 to 13 touches for someone to actually create action. And we can use predictive anticipation to start hitting those touches earlier on in the process, because we think someone might be interested in a tool or resource, right? So how does it work? You're seeing it already with things like Sephora, Netflix, Spotify. AI analyzes these huge amounts of data that we would never be able to do. And it creates from that, it learns from that behavioral patterns, sentiment analysis, contextual signals, like what time of day you're using something, what your tone is on social media, what you clicked on, or what you hesitated to click on, right? Isn't that crazy? And that unstructured data that we were talking about before, videos, images, and speech patterns. And you can use all of that information to trigger outreach when customers are most likely to convert, to develop a content strategy that is very specific and tailored to where that individual is in that moment, where that emotional state is, where that life cycle stage is, and even make specific product recommendations that are complementary to products that you've already searched for or that you've already purchased, right? Like, this belt matches those shoes that you already purchased, things like that. And you're seeing it with things like Sephora, with Netflix, with Spotify, with your Spotify, like, individual playlists. I don't know, I'm an Apple Music girly, but like the Spotify personalized playlists, right? Like Netflix and your, what you should watch next recommendations. This is predictive anticipation. And it is using that CI to develop different recommendations for you. But it is so incredibly important that when we are using AI to create content, you take into consideration the psychology of AI content, right? So there's a couple different steps of what it feels like to find out or to engage with AI-driven content. It starts with, like, amazement, but it can also go into skepticism, disengagement, and a lack of connection, because you feel like you're not really talking to someone, or not really learning from someone. You're learning from a machine. And so how can we shift some of those things? Well, first we have to recognize them, right? So we do have, as humans, emotional filters for content. We emphasize with content that feels human, because of our mirror neurons, right? And so if AI lacks warmth, we can tell, we can feel it. We're like, that doesn't feel right. We also have a really, really strong authenticity radar, not just us, but especially like this next generation, the people who have coming up, that the kids who are coming up with, like, that are trained to spot some of that, like, fakeness, the Gen Z and BIPOC communities who demand this cultural and contextual accuracy, right? So that authenticity radar is always going. I'm looking to see what feels real, what feels natural. And of course, we want to take into consideration the difference between the curiosity of like what this cool new thing is, and then being creeped out when you realize that, that technology is manipulating you, right? And so to create trust in AI content, we have four really important questions that we want to ask ourselves. When it comes to relatability, does this sound like it came from my community? Right? For us, by us, does this sound like my community had a hand in building this? Authenticity, does it feel like someone gets me? Does it feel like they are being honest to themselves and therefore honest to what I'm feeling? Emotional resonance, does it move me? Right? You can ask yourself these questions when you are creating content with AI. And is it straightforward and not just fluffy? Something we've seen a lot with recent like AI content is that like fluffiness. So this helps you make sure that like with clarity, it's straightforward, right? And so I have these 5 W's that we use for everything, and we're going to use them specifically for AI marketing and AI content creation, right? So if you can combine our current approaches with the new AI technologies to improve your marketing, you could use some of these W's to really expand your efforts, right? So what you're asking yourself, the who are the people who express intent, and how can we better target them rather than broadcasting to a segment of all subscribers, right? Using that data analytical option that you can use with AI to really review large amounts of information so that you can narrow down your audience and who you want to target with your content, right? That's step one. Then based off of that, what content would they value based on their preferences and behaviors, right? So now that we've got all of this information, we've seen what they like, what they want to do, let's look at that and determine what type of personalized content we can create for those individuals instead of this generic messaging that could apply to anyone. Then when is the ideal time to send that relevant message? And we can do that again by analyzing all of this large amount of data that we collect, but it would be impossible to sit down and comb through regularly, right? But with some of our AI tools, you can really figure out when is the best time to send this message. Not just 2 p.m. is when most people are checking their emails, but more specific to when is someone likely to take an action for something, right? Maybe it's not necessarily like, oh, they're going to open an email at 2 p.m., but maybe I'm going to send some information after I've already seen that they've purchased this other thing, because now I know that they need this other tool, right? So it's less about like time of day of week, and it's more of like the time of when an individual is undergoing some sort of shift that makes them more likely to engage with your messaging, right? Where these messages should go, that one always makes sense when it comes to like what channels, what social media platforms, what, Substack, what Reddit, what tool are you using to really get that out there and align not only with their preferences, but also with their like engagement preferences. And what are the ways to learn exactly how customers prefer and expect to engage with your brand, right? That's something that, like, with all of this data and all this information that we now have access to, we can really use that creative intelligence to answer these questions for ourselves. So we'll talk about these 5 steps now, and I'm going to go through them a little rapidly. But again, if you are looking for the slides, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and I can send them over to you. But there are 5 basic steps to really lead with some creative intelligence in this content generation space and create that meaningful messaging, right? So step 1 is going to be pick your tools. Step 2 is practice prompt crafting. Step 3 is audit your content. Audit is so important to check for bias, for tone, for cultural resonance. The 4th step is going to be to set guardrails. And the 5th step is to embrace continuous learning, because we are not going to be done learning until this is done building, and it's not going to be done building. So for step 1, build your marketing toolkit. These are different tools that you can use in different spaces that can support your content creation and your meaningful messaging, right? So within copywriting, there are some tools here that help you, like ChatGPT, obviously, but like Jasper AI or Copy AI. Within design and visuals, you can use things like Adobe Firefly, Canva Magic Studio, Midjourney. For audience insights and CRM, tools that we're already using are actually really implementing these audience insight tools with AI. So like HubSpot, MailChimp, Sprout Social are all developing social listening, AI audience insights, smart segmentation, and predictive analytics. So those are some tools that you can use for that, as well as for automating your workflows like Zapier, Descript, and Notion are all giving you the opportunity to also use AI in those spaces. So once you've built your marketing toolkit, it's time to start thinking like a creative director, right? So what does that mean? Instead of talking to AI as if it is just going to do a task for you, you need to ask it not just to do this, right? You need to shift your mindset so that it knows how to collaborate, co-create, refine, and challenge you back, right? So for example, a sample prompt could be to collaborate is instead of saying like, hey, do this, you're going to say, hey, help me brainstorm emotionally resonant headlines for a Black-owned wellness brand launch, right? When you are talking to it like a creative director, when you're collaborating with it, it's going to help you. It's going to come into the position of someone that wants to collaborate with you, right? And so it's going to ask more questions. You're going to be able to engage in a much more impactful way. And so here's some other prompts that you can use, things that will help position it for that co-creation, for refining, and for challenging you, right? My favorite thing is to be about that challenge space, because you learn more and it learns more about what you're looking for when you're having that dialogue around challenging. So instead of saying, hey, do this, you say, give me 3 options for this, and one of them should be like completely unexpected, right? Or provocative, so that it really has to deep dive into this content to be able to provide that for you and define what that means. What does provocative mean? What does unexpected mean for an AI tool to develop that? The next step that I want to share with you guys, the next part of step 2, is to really build out that prompt formula for creative intelligence. And you can use this framework, which I really love. So like, what are you trying to accomplish? And answer these questions for yourself. Who is this for? How should it make people feel? What does the AI need to know to support you? And what type of deliverables do you need? You should craft every single ask that you are developing with that structure. Make sure that you are telling the AI what you're trying to accomplish, your audience, your tones, your contexts and constraints, and your output format. Incredibly important. And of course, I always recommend creating your own custom GPT for your brand. That way it knows your brand tone. It uses like pre-trained context and rules, and it can be shared with others so that others can represent your brand the way that you want to be represented, as opposed to, hey, every time you go into a ChatGPT tool, it's a net new experience, right? You should be building this out so that it can be consistent, especially because with authenticity, consistency is the most important thing. The next is step 3. We talked about that, is read the room. For one, it's not always safe to publish content as is, because there are a lot of sometimes issues with like hallucinations within AI. So these tools can reinforce stereotypes. It can use tone deaf or generic language. We know that AI isn't necessarily trained on the cultural nuance, right? So it also misses a lot of that cultural context and emotional nuance. So it's really important that you are really keeping a human in the loop moment, so that you can make sure that you're reviewing all of this. And here are some ways that I recommend auditing your work, right? 1, read it out loud. If it sounds weird when you're saying it out loud, already that's a big red flag, right? 2 is reverse the lens. How would this feel if you were in the audience, right? How would you feel if someone was talking to you about this? Next is community check-ins, right? Run that by real people, not just by algorithms. Talk to the people on your team, talk to people in your community, and make sure that they are also reading it out loud and reversing that lens. And of course, there are tools like Textio or Perspective API that are bias checking tools that help you kind of figure out what are the checklists that you should be following for that conscious language. It's really important to take all of that into consideration so that you're making sure that you're looking for bias and representation, consistency, resonance, alignment, etc. Mohammed, I mentioned earlier that I can share the slides via LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me, feel free to send me a message and I will share the slides with you. And I just dropped my LinkedIn in the chat again so that you have that. Next up is step 4, incredibly important. Implement those ethical guardrails, right? With great power comes great responsibility. And so a couple of things. One, disclose when AI contributes to content creation, especially if it's relevant to trust. I think it's incredibly realistic for you to say, hey guys, I'm building these things with AI. Like I'm editing with AI. Like these are my thoughts, but I'm constructing this concept with AI. And that's no longer a faux pas, right? People are using it on their day-to-day basis regardless. Next. Oh, Oh, great. I just saw the question that came in 3 minutes ago. I will loop back around to that, but I'm a big fan of Go High Level, actually. So yeah, so as I was saying, implementing ethical guardrails, bias mitigation is really important. So as we mentioned, we want to build in that human in the loop feedback. We want to include some of these like language tools that are going to help us analyze what is or is not coming out with bias, stereotypes, or exclusions. Again, brand voice protection is really important. So make sure that you are using it to assist and not replace your brand's voice. And you can do that by creating those like GPTs that I mentioned. Data ethics, respect privacy and consent, you guys. Do not use AI to exploit data that you should not be using. And then for human oversight, remember always to include and incorporate human review before publishing AI generated content. And it's really important that you not only engage in these, but you talk about these things as well, because you want people to understand that when you're building your content, even though you might lean on something like AI for scalability, and to be able to get, more personalization into your work, that you're being realistic about like, hey, I'm using this, but these are the guardrails that I have in place. I respect someone who is sharing like, hey, I'm doing this, but these are my guardrails, right? And that's something that you can put on your social media and pin, right? Especially if you're creating your own brand. Next is shift this mindset, right? AI is not here to replace you. So it's really important that we engage in this continuous learning, because we're able to use AI. It will collaborate with us, expand our thinking, and accelerate that creativity. But we have to really grow and adapt with it, and really adopt a growth mindset, so that we are continuously learning as it evolves. As we see that technology is evolving, so must our skills. So you have to stay committed to ongoing education in AI capabilities and risks, right? Learn from real world use cases, and as well as keep evolving your guidelines as the AI landscape shifts. You should be reviewing your human in the loop processes. You should be reviewing your different systems and processes sufficiently regularly, because at the end of the day, the future of human is not the future of human. The future of marketing is not just human. It's not just machine. It's both, and we need to learn and grow together. So, I would love to connect with you all, and chat a little bit about some of these things. I'm really passionate about engaging in these tools, with cultural resonance and ethically, but still being able to expand and build and make things easier for people. My whole thing is make things easier, right? So feel free to connect with me and send any questions that you may have in the chat. I think we have a couple of minutes that we can discuss some things. The first question that I saw is from Gracie. What are your thoughts and experience with Go High Level? That's a phenomenal question. So I've been learning a lot about Go High Level recently. One of my clients wanted to implement it, so I kind of dove into learning all about it. And it's something that for those of you who may not be aware, it's a tool that it rivals like ClickFunnels, and it's the type of tools that you use to really take someone through a customer journey from when they come into the awareness part of your funnel all the way down to action and even ambassadorship, right? People who, when you're trying to sell something or trying to like create community, or when you're trying to do anything that kind of is bringing a larger group of people down the pipeline, you use a tool like ClickFunnels, like Go High Level, to create forms, landing pages, create automated workflows that bring people from awareness to action, right? From awareness to consideration to action, to then becoming ambassadors for what you're already creating, for your messaging, for your content. I think it's incredibly important to use tools like that. It just depends on your scale, right? Because for most people, you can actually create a funnel on your website with a form, and then create take an email marketing tool to create an automation that when someone comes in through that form, they do XYZ, they receive this email, etc. The amazing thing about High Level is that it helps you really do that at a scale and personalize at a scale, because it integrates with AI tools to say, like, this is what this person is doing. We're going to reply in this way. So this would be one of the tools that I would recommend you use to create, to really build out that like pipeline. Any other questions, comments, concerns before we wrap up today? Amazing. All right. Well, I appreciate you all. Again, feel free to connect with me. Thank you, Sol. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and let me know if you would like access to the slides. I can send over a PDF. And I just think it's really important that we're having these conversations. So I want to thank Techqueria for hosting this.